this hour. Ron Paul, the former congressman and former presidential candidate, he joins us from Texas. Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us.
You're welcome. Nice to be with you.
Likewise, and I wonder what your thoughts are on what we've seen here with that British vote to leave the EU.
I think what everybody's looking at is there was a vote, and it was an important vote. It went differently than they expected, and it sent shockwaves through the markets. But I think the concentration is on the wrong issue. Why do markets drop sharply like that? And that has to do with what preceded it, and what has been preceding the situation that we have throughout the world, and this country as well, is artificially low interest rates that cause people to make mistakes in buying bonds and different things. So it's the instability of the market that will respond when there's something like this that comes up. But the concentration has been, well, what do we do now? It's all because of the Brexit votes. But the catastrophe doesn't come unless there's something that precedes it. And what sets the stage is monetary policy, artificially low interest rates, zero interest rate, which makes no sense. So there's a lot of instability still out there. And this hasn't been corrected yet. And I don't think it's going to correct easily. I think you're going to see a very weak market for a while to come.
One of the big issues here certainly is the uncertainty. Britain essentially says, well, we want to go slow, but the EU says, well, if you want to leave, let's rip off the Band-Aid and do this quickly. What do you think are the next steps here, or what are you going to be watching for? And do you think the way this is resolved is going to impact other countries? You know, we're going to see a domino effect.
I think it's hard for anybody to judge exactly what will happen, but I think the important issue is the sentiment and how people are responding and what the people themselves have thought about, and they were unhappy with belonging to the EU. And that is the message, whether it becomes the law of the land and they go through these functions and they announce this week and they work for it and they have 2 years to work on it, and there's going to be a lot of renegotiation of all the treaties. I think that is very secondary to the sentiment. The sentiment now is, especially for the British people, that they don't want in there, and other countries will do this too. So I think if you're really a champion of the European Union and thinks that's salvation, to have central economic planning be with a European economic union as well as a European central bank, no, I think it's ending, but I think that this whole system of economic planning and central banking and our Federal Reserve System is under attack because we're running out of steam. And if we go into a recession, which I believe many people believe we will or are already there, what does the Fed have left? The only thing they've ever done for a recession
let's stay
is,
with
the
EU.
Fed.
Before we move on to the Fed, let's stay with the EU. Are you saying you think this is the beginning of the end of the European Union?
Oh, yes, I really do. It'll become non-functional. And I know right now they're talking about a militarized, European Union. But no, that's just talk. No, I think in a functioning way, it really is coming to an end. That doesn't mean tomorrow or the next day, but people are going to be very unhappy. But the end is coming not because of the breakup. The breakup is a reflection of the bad policies that the world has been following. We've never lived in the history of the world with pure fiat money for as long as we've had, for 40-some years, since 1971. So it is a type of a bubble and malinvestment and debt-ridden world that you have to deal with. So these are important, and they will precipitate events, but it doesn't solve the problem. The real question is, what are you going to do when it really falls apart? And currencies have fallen apart in the past, and they have to do something. But right now, they're not talking about that. They're talking about how we're going to prop up the stock market this week.
So who do you think is leaving next? Is it going to be Spain? Could it be Germany? Can it survive at all if Germany decided to leave?
Well, I doubt if Germany's doing it. They want to run the show, so they're not likely to. I think the smaller nations maybe whatever they think is in their best interest. If they think they can get bailed out by hanging in there, sort of like Greece did, yes, they're going to hang in there. But eventually it won't work because just printing money isn't the solution. So if they hang in there, and Scotland wants to be in there, well, how are they going to continue to bail out if the system doesn't function? Eventually you have to produce wealth, and what we're doing is destroying wealth, and you just can't pretend and fool the people long enough. They say a central bank creates wealth by creating money and credit out of thin air. Well, it doesn't happen that way, and I think the message is that this system is coming to an end. But yes, I think the various countries are going to threaten to come out and go out. But I think it's de facto, it's breaking up. And by the time they try to get around and do it legalistically, which might take 2 or 3, 4 years, but the organizers of the European Union are going to do everything conceivable to roadblock it or punish people and this sort of thing, which will just make the conditions much worse. And
apologies for interrupting, but a number of the issues that you've brought up and a number of the issues that seem to resonate with people in the election, from immigration, from too much overreach by government, are also resonating here in our election. What do you think are the implications for the U.S. presidential race, with Trump on the one side praising the Brexit vote and Secretary Clinton on the other side issuing more cautious comments?
Yeah, and I think offhand, most people can see that it will probably benefit Trump, but he's not arguing the case from a free market. He's saying that we should have intervention in a different manner, in a populist manner. We should have more tariffs and interference, and he says he hates globalism. Well, a libertarian, a free market person doesn't hate globalism. We hate political globalism and force that comes in and entangling alliances, and the politicians gain control like they have in the European Union. Globalism in a free market means you have a sound currency that you accept. It's commodity-based, and you have as much free trade as possible. And it's a globalism that is based on freedom and free markets and property management and contracts. That's quite a bit different. So it's not globalism that's bad. It's this forced globalism, and we've been involved in it for years. And we've done what the founders said don't do. Don't get involved in these entangling alliances. And just look at the Europeans. They're involved in entangling alliances. The British finally got tired of it. They're tired of taking orders from Brussels. So the entangling alliances don't work anymore.
Kind of ironic that the British vote to leave just ahead of our own Independence Day. Jeff Kilberg in Chicago has a question for you.
Okay. Dr. Paul, always a pleasure having you on. And right now the ECB is stating that we are seeing a 0.5 or a 0.5% being shaved off European GDP. What is the GDP potential impact here in the United States? Because we're already crawling. Is it going to stop it? And in turn, what does that do to the price of gold and to the drop in yields? What is your target in gold if we do see that GDP get hit hard here?
Well, I'm not going to do precisely, but what the policies that we have is, if you want to protect yourself in gold, it's a good time to be in gold. That was just a mini rebound of gold when it went up $100, for a short period of time. No, when this comes unglued, it's going to be very, very good for gold. So I think that the process is going to continue to deteriorate in this manner. And what was the other point you made?
I was just wondering where you see the 10-year note. It went all the way down to 1.46 in the 10-year. Is that yield still offering investors some type of juice? And will there be continued buyers lowering that yield?
Oh, yeah, for a little bit, but then it's going to blow up. Eventually, when people give up on the fiat system, interest rates will go up. The market eventually overwhelms. They're going to continue to do this, and when they can get away with it, and right now the dollar and relative to other currencies, people still go to the dollar, they'll go to our treasury bills. But you can't do this forever. If that were to be the case, if the dollar is the king and remains the king forever, Americans shouldn't have to work ever again. Just print the money and buy stuff from other people. So eventually, the giving up of this system will occur. Then you're going to see the dollar not buying as much and interest rates going up, and then there'll be a lot of scrambling. But there's going to be a political chaos as well. Because right now there'll be political chaos in Europe as well from this, but I don't think that's going to happen overnight. You're not going to see much of a spike in interest rates, but you cannot go on forever manipulating and planning an economy by manipulation of interest rates. The most important number that you need to run an economy is the information you get from interest rates, and all it has done has pushed up the price of the stock. So that is not a solution, and that's all they have to offer.
Dr. Paul, Anthony Gazzanti also has a question for you.
Okay. Yeah, Congressman, thank you for being on the show. I was wondering, you talk about bad policies dictating the way we're going. Is either candidate better for Wall Street with this election coming up, or are we going to get a lot of the same?
Well, no, I don't think there's a difference. Trump, who made the art of the deal, knowing how to donate to the right candidates, Republicans or Democrats, he was part of that system. And he says things that sound a little bit better. And if you're looking for Wall Street, isn't it amazing that over the years, if conservative Republicans would stop and think, why do liberal Democrats like Clinton and others get a lot of money from Wall Street? It's because they're interventionists, they're government people, they're they're business partners with the government. So no, I don't think either one of them will offer the real solution. But on the surface, people might think that that Trump might offer something different, but not when he offers trade protectionism and the sort of policy that's not going to solve the problem.
Congressman, as we look at our own election, you have said that you can't support Trump. We do now have a third-party candidate that does seem to be interesting some voters, although apparently taking share from the Democrats rather than the Trump candidacy. At this point, what do you think how do you think voters are going to be influenced here, seeing what happened in Britain? Both the protest vote that happened and then what some people are calling regrets it after the fact as people realize what they've really voted for.
Yeah, I think what will happen is that as we get closer to the election, I've sort of been through this as a libertarian once, that they're going to vote not third party, even though this would have been an opportunity, but unfortunately the Libertarian Party right now present themselves with mostly Republican viewpoints, and it's not clear enough. So what will drive it is who do they hate the most? And it couldn't be any worse than this campaign because it's all negatives. Who has the biggest negative? So, but that'll motivate people. Yeah, we cannot stand Hillary. She will bring the end of the world upon us. And Trump,
so effectively, you think people are just going to vote against someone, not for anyone?
Yes, they're not going to be worrying about Federal Reserve interest rate policies, and they'll probably forget about Brexit by then too. They're going to continue to be negative, and that's the way the campaigns have generally been run. So it's they're the lesser of two evils, and therefore I'm sick and tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. We shouldn't be doing that. But I'm not interested in politics as much as I'm interested in talking about free markets and sound money, and why if we had that message that politicians would respond. The most magnificent thing about this is the people's sentiment. Their ideas had changed, and it affected what the vote did. So when the people's ideas changed, here they were in the European Union for 40 years, and all of a sudden it changed. That's because the people's minds have changed. And eventually the peoples will change their minds. So I'm more interested in changing people's mind and getting them to understand that you can't have prosperity when you have governments forever growing and growing, and a system that says deficits don't matter and printing money is good, and all we need is more government when we have a recession. That we have to get people to understand what we need is freedom. We need individual liberty. We need property rights. We need contracts. We need to believe that freedom is prosperity. That's how you get prosperity, and it can't be gained by propping up the stock market, and because that's very divisive. When you prop up, when you have an economic system that benefits a 1% or 2% or 5%, and you and understand that when you destroy a currency, you always destroy the middle class. So we're living in that. People need to understand that if they're going to accept liberty. Right now they say, well, we want the government to take care of us. We have somebody who runs as a socialist and actually gets a lot of votes. Well, we need to confront that, because all you have to do is look to Venezuela. Right. Socialism doesn't work.
Dr. Paul, we're going to leave it on that note, on that patriotic note, ahead of Independence Day. Hope you have a great 4th of July, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.